following content contains personal experiences of our hosts and guests. We are not experts in this matter. We encourage challenging conversations with others and to achieve healing from our childhood. We hope to connect and allow a safe space to have an open discussion. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment. Welcome back, first generation listeners. We're here at the Spotify studios. Your lovely hosts, Nina and Tiffany. We're here doing another great episode. One of her oldest friends is going to be hopping on this podcast with us
from Minnesota, Napoleon Tavale.
So excited to meet him and learn a bit about his background and culture and upbringing, especially just learning he's American Samoan. Yeah. So Samoan American. He's Samoan American. And so we would love to dive in, see if he has any first generation feelings as well. Yep. And we'll expand and hopefully get some healing on. Let's heal. Let's talk about it. Yeah. We'll get into it. Let's dig in.
Hello, First Gen Podcast listeners. I'm so excited to be joined today with my oldest friend from Minnesota, Napoleon Tavale. I've known you since we're 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
And we grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota together. You're Samoan American. And we've been in touch ever since. And we actually ended up moving, not together to LA, but we ended up together in LA. You specifically for acting, and I came out here for other reasons. So really excited to have you join us today. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'd love to just have you start out and just tell us about your family's origin and how your family ended up in Minnesota.
Yeah, so thanks, first of all, for having me. It's awesome to be here. Nice to kick off the new year with you. So I was born in America Samoa, which is, for our listeners, it's in the South Pacific region. And then we made our way to Minnesota. Of course, there's several stops before then. We were in Hawaii for a little bit, and then Northern California, and where my younger brother was born. And then we made our way to Minnesota by my uncle, who was running a Polynesian entertainment business. And so he was doing a lot of the Polynesian dances. That includes the islands of Samoa, Hawaii, Fiji, Tonga, Tahiti. And at the time in Minnesota, he decided to up and leave to go to another place. I believe it was Massachusetts and Boston. And he had a house, and my folks were looking to start new. They were in their 20s when they had me. And then they were still young when they had my brother. And so that's where they packed up and moved to Minnesota. And I arrived there when I was almost 3. Wow. And that's where my formative childhood years were in Minnesota.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. The journey and the history of your family. I know first generation, I know it has been technically, I just want to state this here. It also includes those that have been raised at such a young age. Cause 3 years old, I don't remember much from that time, that age range. And I know I have a 2-year-old son. He's not going to remember a lot of the things. But so growing up here in America is quite different than what your parents have been brought up and are used to. So in a sense, yeah, technically first generation feelings. Like, we're curious to know if you had similar instances, like how Nina was born and raised in Minnesota, of like not fitting in or just feeling out of place because of your family's history and you being born
outside of the States.
Of the States, and but being raised basically American because you were so young. And that's kind of all you remember. It's like you don't remember the old country, so to speak, unless you do.
No, I don't.
You don't.
No. And I think that speaks to what your podcast is about, the idea of first generation. First of all, it's not our choice. as children
Yeah.
to have to move. So it's a loaded question because the answer, and I have to give it to them, is my parents for making the decision to leave a place that they've known their whole life, which at that time was in their 20s, and to up and leave and go to a cold state, right? But the idea for them was opportunity. And so what I'm hearing, T, is, at least for us young, I don't remember anything from American Samoa. So essentially Minnesota is home. But when I arrived there, do I look different from everybody else? Yes. But that was clear when we arrived in the snow. That these are people from the Pacific Islands. What are they doing here? Now, I can only speak from my experience in my family, but we were welcomed because of another family member that knew us. And so we were brought into the North St. Paul area where we met some other folks that pretty much took us in. And through that is where I learned, and this is thanks to my parents, when we shared the culture, we did it in a way that involved music and dance. And everybody loves that.
Yeah.
Everyone loves that, especially at least the area that I was in. They were interested in learning about the culture. And I feel in retrospect, I've never thought about this until now, you asking, that was that bridge of, hey, where are you from? Where are you folks from? You look like you come from someplace warm. It could be taken as offensive, but like I said, growing up in that environment where it was genuine, I felt those folks were trying to get to know us. And that's how we became friends with the people that were from Minnesota. And in that element, what I can remember from my childhood is it being rather smooth in that transition. But also, I don't know about y'all, but my parents were very good at hiding things that I shouldn't know.
They're like protecting or shielding
Yes.
you from some of the
Even till this day.
harsher things.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so therefore they made my transition there as a child, being raised there,
Good.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Even though as I grew up, I kind of see things financially, where we lived and but it never deterred from them saying, we came here for a reason, give you a good education, work hard, and essentially what we call now the dream, right? Just to be able to live and feed your family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the universal language is dance and music,
Yeah.
and food.
I love that.
I feel like food always brings a lot of people together.
Absolutely.
As well. But yes, just that culture and just spreading it within just St. Paul or like just in Minneapolis.
The Twin Cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool to hear that, your family, your parents fostered a nice, comfortable upbringing. What's the family dynamic? Are you the oldest? Are you
I'm the oldest of two, and we're 3 years separate, 3 years apart. Something else that my parents did that it's credit to them because it's not something I see a lot of my cousins probably do, is they kept the language in the family. So I speak it natively. It was my first language, Samoan.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's, the greeting is talofa. It's similar to Hawaii when they say aloha.
Okay.
The islands of Samoa and Hawaii are sister islands. So we were genuinely mistaken as Hawaiians. It's not the same. We're not the same island. We are related, but it's not the same. So it's just something that we had to accept in terms of, they're Hawaiians or it's fine. But as the years went on, they started to see the differences, that there are multiple islands. It's why we call it Pacific Islands or Pacific Island. And credit to my parents and the discipline that they maintain the language as well as maintaining our sharing of the culture through dance and music. So we would dance at church functions.
I remember.
That's where Nina saw a lot of
a lot of baby oil, a lot of
half naked men up there. Again, not my brother and I's decision. My parents said these folks want us to dance so that they can learn about our culture. Of course, we would complain, no, we got to take our shirts off. We got to speak a different language. It's not the same sounds as English language. So my brother and I are growing up with, we know the native language of speaking Samoan, but then when you're in a school where it's predominantly English, that's where I learned English, was at school. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because when I first came here, I only knew Samoan.
Really?
So my
Oh.
parents were saying, you just talking to your friends at school, that's how you learned English. And then
That's
when I'd come
incredible.
home, my parents would read, because they're Catholic. A lot of these islander families have a religion of some sort. It's historically a lot of missionaries and all. So,
Mhm.
and my family decided to teach us the language by reading it in Samoan, reading it when we get home, the book. And then they said, when you go to school, you can learn English.
Oh,
But
so
when
they
you come back here,
separate.
they
They
separate.
separate.
And there was discipline, as in, I will call it a physical discipline. I won't call it the abuse word. But if there was, you step out of line, they say, no, you speak this language here at the house. You speak that language at school.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe 100% that they felt that was the only way for us to maintain the language
Mm.
throughout the entire, time I lived under their roof. Because their whole thing is, as soon as you leave here, you can do whatever you want.
Mm.
But if you're under this roof, you have to follow the rules of the family, which maintained a religious aspect of praying in the morning and then going to school, and then we have mass at school. And
Right. Yeah.
then doing all the communion and all that stuff, which I very much enjoyed. It
Yeah.
was a lot of fun of singing in the choir and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still culturally based.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, is it assimilation? I think so as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's their way of saying, well, we already do this. These other folks, they do it too. Why don't we just all do it together?
Yeah.
And they can get some good food and dance out of it. I'm just thinking of my parents' 20-year-old mind,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
where they don't know anybody. They're just trying to be, keep their heads low.
Right.
And again, there may have been things that they didn't share with me. Even to this day, they wouldn't share with me, that I felt maintained the idea of the kids. They need to know this, and they don't need to know what else is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Well, and thank you so much for pointing out, like, just, giving your parents credit, because we don't want this podcast to be like, oh man, we were struggling with first generation problems and our parents are terrible. That's not at all what we're trying to say here. Because to your point, like, your parents were young, they moved to a cold place and
Yep.
try to, like, acclimate and get you guys settled. But you brought up something, and I'm curious. I've known you for a while, so I'm like, Nap is the most respectful person
Yes.
ever. He would never fight with his parents. I've met your parents. They're the sweetest people. But I'm curious. You're talking about discipline, and, they had certain rules under their roof. Were there things that you struggled with? For example, for us, it was like, oh, you can't date, and if you do, you have to stay in this house until you're married. Like, kind of those traditions and those rules. Did you have a similar upbringing, and did you struggle with any of that?
I did have a similar upbringing. That's funny that you bring that up, because I haven't thought about it since then, because I've been an adult for a long time.
Sure, yeah.
When you're a child. So I'll start with the kind of easy rules. My mom she just wanted, education is big. So the 5 days a week are school-based, Monday through Friday. So there's no television or video games.
Mm.
I'm thankful that era we did not have cell phones. I wish you all the best with your child, because it's a very difficult time right now.
Sure.
Even certain things of what one student may have, and I'm going student because my teacher mind, so I'll call them students. What students will have at school, what happens if another student doesn't have that? For example, now if one person has a phone and another person doesn't have a phone,
Yeah.
it's very tough. So during those days, for me, it was just, so-and-so has nice shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I get those nice shoes?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. Like 9 months out of the year, we go to school. Mom is really big on there's no television and no video games. And then on weekends, it's okay to watch TV if you've done your homework. With women, like, these are the days where it's non-cell phone, so you have to call the house. You got to call the crib and,
Yeah.
hello, Mrs. Tavale.
You
Can I speak
have
to
to
you?
talk to the parent that's
You have to
probably
get
answering.
get ready, and it's assuming that they'll be there to answer.
Yeah.
So you have to prep and be ready to ask if they're there, and then if they're there, then you talk to them. But if they're not there, you worked up all this anxiety, a word that didn't exist in my family until years later, right?
Mhm.
But that was the rules, and we stuck to it. It was. There were times that mom and dad would say, "Okay, their grades are good," or "It's a break, it's President's Day weekend, let them." So they were good with that. So maintaining studies, stuff like that was big. Now with girls, it was there was no dating.
I don't know. I remember you being
they're
very
friendship.
popular
I would
with the
say,
girls. So.
hang on, I should say there was no dating officially.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
dating is a big word in middle school years. I mean, I don't know how the kids do it these days, but dating for us is, as myself and my brother, that would have to be maybe in high school.
Mm.
Maybe. So if we look back at the age, high schools are what, 15, age 15.
Yeah,
Mhm.
15.
That was a
16.
maybe. But now that I look back, no, that was still a no as well. But and I'm not saying my parents are adamantly no. When it came to formal things, like, oh, there's a dance. Oh, okay, well, yeah, that's lovely.
Of
You can go
course.
with so and so if you want to go.
If it's a school function.
If it's a school function,
know.
yeah. And in the Catholic school, you just leave room for the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
to dance.
Make way for the Holy Spirit.
Just make way.
Make way. Yeah, no.
But that was pretty much the extent of those types of rules. Again, I'll repeat, it's under their roof. So
Mhm.
we have to abide by. And was it difficult? Oh, yeah, it was very difficult in terms of, if my brother and I want to do certain things and it's a school night, yes. But because we had activities for a school that they're paying for, because private schools, you pay for it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that was another thing that parents will tell me.
And it's not cheap either.
It's not cheap.
Mm.
And it's already a family that doesn't have much money to begin with.
Mm.
So they'll let us know, we're paying for this school, so you have to do this. Again, the tough thing is it wasn't our decision, my brother and me, but I did enjoy my time at the school. So it's like, oh yeah, I do want to go back and see my friends.
I was going to say, did you feel rebellious or were you more studious and wanted to, make your parents proud that
It's that.
it's that? Yeah. Okay.
But I believe that their discipline on their end to remind me, the reminder of just every day of, it's a good education and we're paying for it and we want you to have the best. That narrative, I did feel it was genuine from them because I looked at their history. They just graduated high school.
Mm.
So they don't have an extensive collegiate education. And it wasn't hard to know that they came from an island where the entire island is 200,000 people. There's not a lot going on for them. So even with my brother and me, we were able to see that and see that they genuinely care about us having a good education. Wasn't easy though. I mean, those days there weren't tutors.
Mm,
So
yeah.
if I come home and ask them a question and they don't know, they're just thinking, you got to figure it out.
Yeah. That added
Or
pressure.
go to your teacher in the morning or something like that. This is even before email days and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it was added pressure that I think pushed me to just be the best that I could. And as long as they saw that I was trying my best at it every single time, I felt that was successful for whatever year it was. Because first grade, second grade, third grade, each year is different.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was the big discipline on their end in terms of education. Just focus on that and the girls will come later.
There you go.
It seems, yeah. They'll be there.
They'll be there.
And they came.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to know. I mean, I know that Dan and Hannah were talking about like certain superstitions or folklore from the last episode. Anything with that in like Samoa? Like, I mean, for Filipinos, we have so many superstitions, so many different folklore stories. I'm just kind of curious to hear some of those.
Well, when I
Yeah,
was
me.
young, there's only certain stories that I heard from my family that only takes place on the island. But
Okay.
all those people believe in ghosts.
Okay, so don't visit America Samoa.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
they believe it to the point when I was hearing it as a kid, I thought it was a joke. So instead of telling scary stories, they told their actual experience that they had, and I thought it was a story.
Oh.
I was like, "Are you trying to say this to scare me?" No, it's things that they
Oh,
experience.
wow.
Okay.
That's
Um,
kind of cool.
Yeah,
That's
and so
cool.
that's why as I grew up too, and I watch, mom is vehemently against anything horror genre because she believes that the stuff on the island is for real. Whereas dad is completely opposite. He already believes it's real and he just wants to see it on screen. So he's not that scared of it.
Yeah.
They were good about when we were watching those certain things of, this is not real. It's just, but a scary movie is a scary movie. But that's the only thing in terms of growing up. They would share their real life experiences on the island, and it's basically seeing ghosts.
Mm.
It's basically a presence of some kind because their homes it's an island. So you have the water, right? You have the sand, you have the trees, and then a bunch of jungle, right? So it's all jungle. And then there's a bunch of animals running around. And so they would feel the presence, and they would tell me these stories, and I'm like, man, this is scary. Is this a story? No, it was an experience that happened all the time. And then there's possession stories as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh
yeah.
Those were the stories.
Those were the stories
that we heard.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are scary.
When I was young, I was like afraid to visit the Philippines at some point because I was like, all these scary things happen there, and then there's and I see the exorcism, all those movies that happen here, and I'm like, oh no, I need to pray. I need to pray some more.
Because if
you need to go to church.
Raised Catholic,
we were raised Catholic. Yeah,
it's a thing. Yeah.
Very similar upbringing in that sense, all the way through high school.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I was afraid to go to the Philippines because of the possessions that happen within our family, and I think there was like this gnome.
Oh, what is it called? It's small people.
Little small.
New news. It's like, so at night, like you're not supposed to like go outside, or if you do, you have to like say, pardon me, because they're like small people that live under like mushrooms or in the grass or near trees.
Goodness.
And if you like step on something, like something will happen to your foot, like you'll break your foot. So when we were growing up camping in Minnesota, like my mom was always like, hey, if you're going to leave the tent to go pee outside, you better like ask for permission. I was like, who am I asking for permission here? Like, this is like, and so I just never peed because I was like, I don't even.
She's so scared.
Yeah, it was scary. But I mean, I still have not been to the Philippines. I definitely still need to go. I want to learn the language. Have you been back to Samoa?
So I've been back to American Samoa once.
Okay.
It was for my thesis, for my grad
How old
school
were you?
thesis. I was 25.
Oh,
And when I went back,
Adult life.
it was, I was born, right? And then didn't go back until 25. So I share that because when I arrive on the island, there's a lot of double takes of, that's him. He's now a full-grown adult. Because they hadn't seen me since I was born.
Oh, okay.
So all the family members there had not seen me in over 2 decades.
Wow.
And when I went back there, it was a great experience. I'm also aware of how fast things move here in the States. Because over there, in island time, that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Simple things as if you go to the store and you buy things, and then I swipe my card and they say, "Oh, you just gotta wait; it'll go through." And 20 minutes go by, 30 minutes go by. I say, "You got cash?" No. I don't. Then I got to run out and get cash. And it's okay if the line is held up. People are like, don't worry about it. It's fine. Well, I thought, and that's at age 25. I was like, I can't live here. I'm not. And I took Dad with me when I went. And I finally understood why they left the island. It wasn't until I went back that I saw how there's not a lot going on.
Mm.
And when that happens, you have church, bingo, karaoke, and then everything else. If I list, it's not healthy.
Mm.
People drink and smoke, and
Mm-hmm.
People have babies. And you're thinking, I see. I was only there 4 weeks, but by week 2, I was ready to.
4 weeks is a long time.
Yeah, because I thought I would need 4 weeks for the project. I was going to study where my name came from, because I'm named after my great uncle, Napoleon Tavale, who wrote and composed the national anthem to American Samoa. And I never got to meet him, but he passed in '88. So this was the project. And I said, Dad, it'll take us 4 weeks. We got it done in 2 weeks, because there's not much going on.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did my research, everybody was available. Oh, you can come over right now.
Sure, no problem.
You got questions? Yeah, come over. And we were done in 2 weeks. And the last 2 weeks, it was just a bunch of fun for me at age 25.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
This kid from America who speaks the language. I almost cheated in that sense because the natives people there are seeing, wow, I guess we can leave the island and still be able to have the culture.
Mm.
So I was a
That's
spitting image.
yeah. That's
Of-
impressive.
It is. And also my sandals were stolen.
Well,
They would
okay.
love me and give me, say, hey man, you're a good guy. And then I come back outside and they took my sandal.
Wow.
And at
They're
that
like,
point,
oh, you're American. Never mind.
at that point, when that happened, I'd get upset. But by the time I left, I would go, I didn't want that shirt anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't want, you know what? It's actually better for them. This is family that's taking. It's not like other people.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
Okay.
It's-
I was
it's
like,
family.
the
wait.
stranger, the store shop guy.
It's family.
okay.
And even going out on the island, and maybe this, I don't know if this happens with y'all if you go elsewhere outside of the States, but there's always family that says you have to go with so and so. Don't go by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of need a guide. You need
Yes.
a native
Exactly.
to show you the way.
Especially even in islands, there's villages. So if I tell them, oh, I'm going bowling, they'll say right away, oh, Nap, that's in XYZ village. Okay, yeah, I'm excited to go. No, you need to go with your cousin.
Mm.
I'm old enough. I'm fine. Nope, go. And I understood what they meant
Yeah.
because you get the looks of.
Mhm.
I mean, isn't it strange? As I'm talking about this, I got more bad looks there than in the States.
Wow.
Mm.
And the looks are not necessarily bad in terms of, by race. It's by class.
Really?
I mean, even if I wore a shirt like this, it shows class. That's not a shirt we see around here, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Where are you
yeah.
from?
Yep. No,
I see.
you're a bright target.
Yes.
Same thing in the Philippines as well.
Yeah.
It's like you need to watch what you wear because
Right.
they'll know. Like, oh, you have things, you have possessions, you have things that we don't have. So it's like you're a bright target. Like,
Yep.
okay, you're
Sobers
not
you up-
from here.
It sobered me up real quick at a bar.
Yeah.
And my cousin would say, it's all right. It's okay. But it's strange
Yeah.
because we're all there to have the same good time.
Right.
Mhm.
But even that one look could just,
Yeah.
Wow.
it could cause for them to say, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't have that necessarily. I mean, of course, in the States, I go to certain places where I feel like I'm okay. But it was the first time where I thought I was okay with these are my people.
Mm.
But
Wow.
those people, I don't know about them. They don't know about me. We're not the same just because we speak the same language
Yeah.
and that's my American standard.
Mm.
I'm pointing to my head because that's my American way of thinking.
Hmm.
Well, if we speak the same language, we're the same people, aren't we?
Right. Yeah.
No, it's a class. It ends up being a class thing. And I did realize I was like, that was barely a nice shirt for me in the States. Over here, it's cash. It's a
Mhm.
rich, I look bougie in that way.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just a memory that I recall having that it didn't matter if it was a good time I was having. It sobers you up to the environment that you're in.
Wow.
It's a good thing. It's not a bad, like it wasn't ill in any way, but it opens my eyes to the world.
Yeah.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah, just visiting a new place outside the states or even outside literally our state. It's a different vibe. I was curious to know a bit more of your feelings towards like I think that's so amazing to hear that they've welcomed you in because
Mhm.
you know the language, you know. Because I know for me, I don't speak Tagalog fluently, but I can understand it. And that is definitely like, hey, you're token in to
Mhm.
your culture, right?
Yeah.
And so that's great to hear that you're able to switch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's exactly that.
It's
It's
great.
code switching.
Very envious. That's so amazing. How was it also traveling there with your father? Like, was that a tough time? Was that a good time?
It's for those of us that have our parents still, I would say anything that you can spend with a parent or parents where it takes them back to the lands that they were raised, because that's where he was raised. That's where dad was raised.
Mhm.
And we just, I'm close with the guy and I'm good with the guy, but it ends up bringing things about him that he feels he's now able to share with me at that age. And so it was a beautiful just harmony of him and I would ask questions about it. I mean, I was basically going to where he was raised, and him sharing, these are the places I did this. This is where I met your mom, and this is where. Yeah, because they're
beautiful.
from the same village, so those types of it makes sense because those villages are small. You go and be with the people that are around you.
Mhm.
They don't live too far from you, and so it's convenient, right?
Hey neighbor.
Hey neighbor.
Hey neighbor.
Yeah, so it's that kind of thing, and I have yet to go back with both of them, but it was just a beautiful trip to bring us closer together because that's where he's from, and if we're able to do that in our lives, see where our parents came from, I think it helps with understanding the choices that they made as parents, because I do believe it's the hardest job in the world just to be a decent parent.
Yeah.
Just to be
Telling
decent.
me?
Yeah. You would
Why I don't
know,
wanna
I
have
don't
kids.
know.
Totally respect that. Totally respect
Respectfully.
that. Yeah, totally
I'm
respect that.
curious. I mean, I know that you were getting the looks, but do you know if your dad had a similar experience? Because he left and then now he's back, and it's like, oh, was it like, hey, this guy left and went to America, now he's back and he's all bougie? Like, like,
Or
I'm
like,
curious,
oh,
what is
are you
that like?
better than us?
Yeah.
That,
Do you know if he had that experience, or maybe you don't?
At least from when I was with him, it was warm welcomes.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing with the island. I mean, the island of American Samoa, it's the biggest export of, first of all, NFL football players,
Mhm.
college football players from
Right.
the island. And that's the first in terms of, that what they're known for. Also military.
Mm,
Military will
really?
get anybody. They'll get anybody and everybody, especially those on the island that want an opportunity. Come join the military.
Hmm.
And they do the same in the States.
Mhm.
But think of, that's why we call it a rock. Everything around you is
Mm.
water. So if
Mm.
there's an opportunity for you to go elsewhere,
Outside. Mhm.
this is where it's huge. And so this is a good question, Nina. For my parents, once they had me, they had to think very quickly on their feet of where do they want to raise me.
Mm.
And the first thing that came to mind is the States.
Yeah.
And so it's now, how do I get there? Well, mom actually graduated high school in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
So she had experience with the States, whereas dad didn't. But when they had me, that's where they had the discussions very quickly of, do we want to stay here or do we want to go there? Now, with all of that in mind, folks were supportive of that.
Mm.
They're very supportive. Also, it's one of those things that, we'll have family in the States.
Mhm.
Mhm.
We'll have some place. So when he came back, he was welcome. And a lot of it is genuinely, in my experience over there, they genuinely welcome you back. But it also gives them a little bit of inspiration to understand that the culture can go anywhere. It just
Mhm.
depends on the people that are living under the roof of that house, if you're able to maintain that. Prime example was my parents, right? So when I went back to the islands, I wanted to kind of show them I'm fully with them. So I would do chores in the morning. And these kinds of chores were like pulling weeds.
Oh my gosh.
And
I
then
was gonna say I don't want. Okay, I was gonna say killing your own food.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Because
shoot.
I would definitely say no.
Okay. Okay.
I would definitely say, nah, not doing that.
Hey,
Oh,
Nap, there's
man.
a pig over there.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You like him?
You need to
We're eating him. But
that was a shock when I've only visited the Philippines twice. So far, fortunate to visit the Philippines twice in my life. One when I was I think 10 years old. I was very young,
Mhm.
but my dad's side of the family, they have a farmland, and so that was a big culture shock for me when I was a kid. Like I didn't understand the culture where I was coming from, and I was like, can I just have milk and cereal? Whereas they cooked the eggs from the chickens they had there, and there was a duck I became friends with, and that turned into a meal. And,
Oh,
and
no.
that was like, whoa, this was a little
Is it more
too
difficult
intense.
for you when you've had a relationship with it and then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they
Well,
didn't
did
tell
you name
me.
it?
I did.
Okay,
the
see,
duck
that's
was the duck
once
was
you name
called,
it, you're attached.
the duck was called Ping.
Oh,
It was a white duck, and yeah, I was.
Oh.
It was a
Was he
different
delicious though?
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because I mean, does anything happen here when you're eating it? Like, is there an emotional connection to your
vibe. No,
gut?
I didn't. I don't think I ate it. I was.
Oh,
Just,
okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see,
they
I'm
provide.
with you.
Yeah, they
I'm with-
provided. But the eggs, yeah, the chicken
Oh,
and
yeah.
the eggs, like they're like, here, we just got this from the roost or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I just want and the milk because they didn't have milk and refrigeration's a thing there too in this farm land that they had. It was goat's milk, so it was warm.
Ooh.
It was warm goat milk
Oh.
in my cereal.
Oh.
So
Oh,
that was
With
man.
oatmeal.
yeah, it was very it was very different as a kid. But in my adult life, I visited 4 years ago, right before the pandemic hit, 2020. I went with my uncle and cousins. That was eye opening, and I could relate to what Nap, what you said, Napoleon. I'll call you
Right.
Nap.
Yep, I answered to both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally related similarly with you of the island life. It's just it was a slower pace. I was only there for maybe 2.5 weeks. It felt like a month. It was like so slow, and I needed that, like fast pace here. Everything was like go, go, go. And over there, it was just it was relaxing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, I can't live here very long, much longer than the time I already spent. But it was eye opening to see, this time was on my mom's side for my adult life trip. Seeing where my mom grew up and like the house they all grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
which they demolished, I think, last year.
Mm-hmm.
But just seeing that, I was like, okay. And with 13 kids living in this like small little house that they all had to like grow up together. And that's one thing I wanted to start, understanding a little bit more. 'Cause with my mom, like I've never asked her those questions. I kind of heard more from like my uncle,
Mm-hmm.
I just know they wanted better opportunity here. So that, hence they moved out of the islands and came to the
Yeah,
US.
it's when you talk about it's the idea that it's slow there, it's only because we live in the fast pace. To them,
Yeah.
they don't think there's any other pace.
Yeah.
Right.
And at that point, I'm a little bit envious
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they don't pay taxes there in my island. But at the same time, it's like understanding this idea of I do this in the morning, I do this in the afternoon, I do this in the evening. And when we look at it from how fast our life is, it seems pretty healthy if it's just that. But because we've grown up a certain way and know certain things, we're
Mhm.
thinking, man, I got to get back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
gotta get-
things to
Yeah,
do.
I got to get
things to
back.
do.
And of course, these are my cousins that are young. They'll grow up and understand that, well, once you have a family, you'll have to make these decisions. But from what I saw, there are a lot of folks that are very content with that.
Mm.
And who are we to say, right? Like, no, your life should
Yeah.
be otherwise.
Mhm.
But if it's all for them in one place like that, and they get all of their meals and their faith and their love, and
If they feel
if they-
fulfilled.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
and
why-
especially where we're from, because we're from paradise. It's an island. It is
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's gorgeous.
great
Like,
weather.
great weather.
You got to slow
Yeah.
down and enjoy it.
I know.
Yeah.
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 It's beautiful.
Well, I mean, so far there's been a lot of similarities in just like our upbringing. And I'm curious though, like career choices. You mentioned NFL. I know that Ned, your younger brother, played for
Played for the Gophers,
Yeah,
yeah.
Gophers. And I know NFL is like a big thing there. And I know that you had your short film also called Off the Rock, which congratulations
Thank you.
to you for that. But for us, like we're supposed to be doctors. I mean, they chose our careers for us. Education was also very important.
Yep.
But was that similar in your situation? Did they have like a career path for you, or are they happy with what you're doing now? I mean, certainly my mom could have. She still was like, "Oh, you could have been a doctor." I'm curious to hear about that.
It's a very good question. I'm only pursuing the entertainment career as a performer because I performed as a kid.
Mm.
And my first directors, and my first choreographers, and my first makeup artists, and my first photographers were my parents.
Mm.
So those days of, you got to go dance in front of Nina and the kids at school, I don't want to, I was pretty much forced into it. As I started to do it more, I think this is what you're talking about, Nina. You start to like if people like you. Hey, good job. Very
Yeah.
good job. Right. So then that was a flirtation with me in the career. Like, man, can I do this? Is this
Mhm.
something I can pursue? And it wasn't until high school, because I think our school I don't know if you recall, we did like a musical choir thing where me and a couple of the boys sang from South Pacific, and it was just like a singing show
Oh,
choir thing.
right. Yeah.
That was an introduction for me as a 7th grader of singing and doing movement that people like it. People dig it. Like that was separate from my Samoan dance. This is now musical. This is now singing. And that's where I was interested in doing it for real. And so I started modeling at Mall of America.
Right. I remember.
I did a teen television show called Whatever on Care 11 there in the Twin Cities, where you go and watch movies and then you do movie reviews after.
Yep.
And then I got into theater, musical theater and one-act plays. So I'm in the career because it started from the culture. It started from, I have to learn this song that's in a different language, and I have to portray the movement so that people that don't speak the language can understand it. So from 6 years old, mom and dad's like, the hands gotta go this way because it's telling the sun and the ocean. And you have to sing it and you have to show it in your face. Because if they don't understand it, then we failed in sharing the culture with them.
Oh, wow.
So that at a young age, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. But repetition, doing it over and over and over again, it's why I'm still performing today.
Wow.
I still feel it's my responsibility to tell this story in whatever collaborative environment that we are in and share it with the audience. So the career came because I was raised in the Samoan culture to share that with others. And essentially for performers, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You have to tell the story,
Sure.
being fully invested with the group that you're in, and it must be seen. It has to be felt, and it has to be listened to and enjoyed. And it's why I teach it today, because it's very much part of what I enjoy to do. Performance is something I'll see myself doing all the way, to the end of my life in some capacity.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's awesome. Curious to know within the entertainment industry and all that, like, I think in the recent times there is more, there's more effort that I'm seeing with representation, and it's nice to see, our faces being
Yes,
on the big screen
absolutely.
now. Just curious to know your take on how that's evolving right now.
Well, this is post-historical strike. Last year was a very difficult year for performers.
Sure.
But I'm very positive about this. I don't call it major steps, but I believe there's incremental steps into showing faces of the world. The word diversity to me is, I don't like that word. I like the idea that it's who we are as a world. So it's the faces of the world. It's not that it's diverse. Just make it look that way because it's supposed to look that way, right? So I'm very happy and very optimistic. That's the positive one, right? About those incremental steps starting to move forward and bigger, a lot with what's happening through our technology. So if a project isn't cast right, or if a project is not, it'll get its backlash, deservingly so. And even with these incremental steps that we make, I don't know if you all notice, it's still centralized on a white character. For example, the movie Next Goal Wins. Great movie, right? Fantastic.
I watched that recently. I was going to bring it up, but I wasn't sure to.
Oh, please.
But yeah, no.
So happy.
You're right.
Yep. And I auditioned for the role. I auditioned for several roles. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm very, very, very happy that it came out. However, because I'm on the side that I'm fully Samoan, that's a film that I can get upset and not being cast. But at the same time, I'm proud of everyone that's in it. A lot of what happens in, I'll call it the Hollywood entertainment industry, is that they'll miscast. So for example, a lot of people in that film, they're islanders, but they're not Samoan. And it's strictly a Samoan story.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. They should be in the film. But how about full-blooded Samoans like myself who speak the language and all that, right? That could be our only opportunity ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And even with that, I still am proud of the film. I still am very proud. But to go back to the idea of centralizing the white character, when it's advertised, it's about the coach.
Something to drink?
Whiskey, beer, wine?
Yep, we got all those. Which one?
Whiskey, beer, and wine.
So
It's safe to say you have zero talent or understanding of the game.
Something not right about this guy. Well, he is white.
Coach, you got the toughest job on the island.
All we want is just one goal. One goal.
Come on, guys! We've worked too long and hard for this.
You've only been here a few days.
And also they have a star in it, right?
Yeah.
So he's a star, good actor, great.
Yeah.
But it's not about the coach. It's about the players that were on, right? And if you see the documentary, it does a better version of it. But again, it's Taika Waititi and his narrative and his version of it. He even says in the beginning that this won't ruin it, but it's an adaptation. But I'm still proud of it because he's still pushing for those narratives.
Yes.
And it's a fun film. It's excellent, and it has my language in it. The same songs that we sing at 5 a.m. for when we're sitting in a circle praying. It just was very moving for me to see that in a theater, that I understand the language. And if that happens more across, with all of our languages, all our cultures, that to me is the faces of the world. It's not diverse. It's just the world exists that way, always.
Right.
Always. But
Yep. There's stories all over the
All
world.
over.
All over the world.
Yep.
Similar, some are different, but all at the end of the day, we all have these stories.
Yes.
They're just not told in the general public. And that's what I love about Taika. When I did see that, I'm like, okay, this is great. He wanted also, the cast, and he is bringing that culture out into the general world. I know you mentioned about casting.
Yep.
I think one of Taika's speeches I listened to recently, I think it was during the strike, and he talked about diversity too. It's just
I've seen this one.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like 100%. So it's yeah, we have these stories. Don't be putting diversity into some random situation, because there's not going to be one of each culture in a friend group, you
Yep.
know? That's
Yep.
rare. I'm sure that happens, but it's not a normal thing. So it's to make it make sense, you have to have just from the top up, the writers need to be of the culture,
Yep.
the casting, the
Production.
the whole
Producer,
production
yeah.
team, all the
Yeah.
things. It should all be those opportunities should be open up to everyone else, because those are stories that are going to be more authentic than someone else telling it or thinking they know the culture or the language and portraying it in the wrong light. And yes, there's a lot more backlash for those that are not providing an authentic storytelling.
Yep.
I think the word diversity is wrong. I think that the idea of diversification of the screen is not quite right, because it's actually confusing everyone. And what's happening is we're mistaking that for we have to include a person from every single race and every single background and every single part of the human experience in every show or everything that we make. That's not reality, and it's not authentic. I never grew up with a group of friends where there was someone who represented every ethnic group in my group of friends. I don't know who the hell grew up like that, where it's okay, wait for my Chinese mate to turn up, and then my black mate, and then my Asian. I mean, it just didn't exist, and it's cool when you see it once or twice, but that's just not reflective of how people grow up. I don't want to see one token Polynesian character in your show, okay? That's just weird. And, unless it makes sense. What I want to see is a fully Polynesian-controlled Polynesian story that's written by and show run by, okay? I don't want to see, when we make our things, don't give us a white showrunner to tell us the rules and tell us how to do things. Let us figure it out, and let us figure out the structure of the story in our own way from our own experience. And by decolonizing the screen, what I mean is just don't make it so white. And it's I'm proud and I'm happy. I'm good if I see someone who's not white on the screen.
But yeah, so I'm just watching Taika's.
Yeah.
I was just
And that's
yes.
that's the same speech, T, where he talks about this idea of diversity is not the indigenous people's fault.
Mm-hmm.
It's the white people's fault. So it's their problem They need to fix it.
Mhm.
Because all this time that we talk about this diversity, Taika says we could be making movies.
Mhm.
We could be already telling the stories, but instead you send me here to talk about this. Hey, let's be diverse, right? That's that speech.
Yeah.
It was really, he
Very
gave it
moving.
with his, his humor and
In his humor, yeah, which was, and people were engaged, and I'm like, dude, he's speaking truth right now.
yeah.
People need to listen.
There was a miscasting film I wanted to talk about as well, that it's very hard for, I wish I could see it, but because it's miscast, I won't see it, but I'm proud of the actor.
Mhm.
May, December.
Haven't seen that.
I watched, yeah.
Did you watch it?
And Charles Melton
Mhm.
plays the part, right?
Yeah.
It's originally a story about a Samoan kid
Mm-hmm.
who slept with his teacher.
Mm.
And that kid, of course, well, he's our age now, has
Yeah.
come out and spoken, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's an
Harrison.
opportunity as well. And I bring it up because it's the same thing with Next Go Wins, although this one is very just deliberate that they did not take the original story. Mind you, I'm sure the performances and the story itself is, but wouldn't the original story be better to hear? Right? A kid who was essentially, right,
Yeah.
raped by
yeah.
a older, teacher or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that story would have centralized a Samoan Polynesian character. There's opportunities for actors like myself
Mhm.
and many out there that we don't have a name yet, right? Those stories, if they're real and they belong to those authentic cultures, that's what I push for. But I'm sure Charles Melton, and he's great, and I believe that.
Yeah.
It's not the performer's faults. I look at it as production.
Mm.
If the studios are saying, well, let's make this story, but let's give that person this background, this
Mhm.
background.
And
Um,
and again, to your point, he's not the star. It's
Julianne
following.
Moore
Yeah,
and
it's
Natalie Portman.
following. Yeah.
It's
the
also
other
it's
characters.
also an issue with those stories. If you think about it, if Hollywood likes those types of stories, that's a problem in our culture. It's essentially pedophilia, right? If I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Mm.
It's not healthy.
Yeah.
And at least if they told the true story, that's the idea. The boy he went through, the kid went through all of this. And so when they didn't take that true story, it was like, but you had an opportunity to educate folks on this particular topic and issue.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
chose a different.
They chose a
route.
different route.
Different route.
Mhm.
But that's
And
my
we-
May,
we-
December.
Yeah, no, we and
tangent.
we know it's an adaptation. Of course, it's not
Right.
the exact, but stemmed off of that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, and it's still happening. I mean, he's still here,
And he has kids.
and he has kids,
Yeah.
and has to live with that. And
Right.
and yeah, no, I did watch the film. It's mind boggling. Like, yeah, the how it impacts those around you.
Yes.
all those decisions and behaviors of these predators, essentially.
Right. The relationships.
And, exactly. And I'm like, that's a more interesting story to get from his lens instead of, the route they took. But
And that way he has his opportunity to tell it from his side.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hey, there might
Wow.
maybe in a couple years he'll, because I know he came out with an interview.
Yep.
So there might be other opportunities.
I think he will. I mean,
And I think he said he was going to come up with a book.
Yeah.
Hold on. What's his name? I wish you-
Vili, Vili,
Vil-
and then
yes.
it's Fuala'au, Fuualu. I mean, the guy sounded very interested in making it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like,
Yeah.
hey, why don't you just come to me? I'd tell you the full story.
I know. Missed opportunity.
Oh.
Missed opportunity. So we got your sense of like what movies you don't want to watch, but like, is there something that you're like, someone you're rooting for, like seeing on the big screen, and it's like, hey, I love what they're doing. Keep doing it. For your culture.
There's a Tongan actress, which is our neighboring island, right? Tonga, Samoa, and Tonga, they're right next to each other. Her name is Lucienne Buchanan, and she was on a show called The Night Agent on Netflix. And she was the lead love interest. And I just thought that was so cool, having a Polynesian actor where they don't have to explain where she's from. She's just playing the role, much like Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead, if you know who I'm talking about. You don't have to hear where he's from.
Mm-hmm.
He's just playing and that's when I believe the diversity word will evaporate because they're just playing the roles of the people they are, right? Same with Beef on Netflix.
Yeah.
because that's problems everybody has. Everybody has
Exactly.
beef on the
Everyone.
road, especially if you live here.
Road rage
Yeah.
in LA, of course.
And then if you have the culture thing, it comes in genuine and natural.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to all
They're
be
not
about that.
forcing it in
No.
your face
Right.
No.
Yeah.
inauthentically,
Right.
which is some of Hollywood is not getting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so this actor, Lucienne Buchanan, she's at Sundance right now, and her movie that she wrote is about her culture. So she's very smart. On Night Agent, right? It's like, you don't know who I am. You probably are guessing I'm some sort of mixed race of. But then she does a film at Sundance, which is probably the biggest film festival we have in our industry, and it is in her native tongue.
Wow.
So I'm rooting for her, and I met her a couple months ago. And so that's one that's fresh. My favorite performer of all time, and I haven't seen a lot of his work recently, but I saw it early, is an actor named Cliff Curtis. He was in the Training Day with Denzel Washington. He
Oh.
played the Mexican guy,
Yeah.
Hispanic, Latino guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not. He's Polynesian. He's from New Zealand. And that's what we call a character actor.
Mhm.
I've always been excited by his work because he transforms. He's not the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is the true testament of a performer.
Yeah.
Where they can just, oh my gosh, they don't even speak that way. You know, when you watch somebody, you're like, oh, that's not even their real voice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're from Great Britain.
Yeah.
They're not
Mhm.
American. You know, that's a testament to me of character.
Mm.
So those are people that I look out for and I root for.
Awesome. Keep an eye out.
Oh, I know.
Are there any Samoan traditions your family still
Practices.
keeps up with, practices?
They still pray.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, that my family, it was always a thing. Even on the island, when I visited American Samoa, at 5 a.m. a bell goes off, and it's just to
Oh.
wake you up to go pray.
Wow.
And at first, I wasn't able to wake up and go to the mass right away. But after 3 or 4 days of hearing the bell, I was able to go and go to mass. And in the morning, it's very nice over there because you can hear the ocean.
Mm.
Like you feel more of a spiritual sense through the nature of the place.
Uh-huh.
And so, ever since I was a kid, my parents, that's what they would do. They'd wake us up and we'd pray in the morning. So they still do that, but now that we're adults, my brother and me, they leave it up to us. But food, cooking together and eating together, that's non-negotiable.
like family gatherings you
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
attend.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Still
We
do
know.
prayer before meals. That's what I still do. I think because our school, you pray
Yeah.
before
Kept
the
the
meals.
tradition
Oh,
there. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There was also a prayer after the meal. I forgot that one.
Was
Oh.
there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We said it maybe once or twice in our years.
Okay.
Like maybe the 3rd or 4th grade year, we didn't do it
Okay.
that much.
Okay.
But nobody remembers the prayer after you eat.
Yeah,
You already
you're
ate.
done.
No. Yeah.
It's all done. But I still do that. That's a tradition that I know started with my family that I've continued on my own. Music and dance is always big. We used to do these dances a lot. But now that we're separate, we don't do the dancing part a lot where we go out and do dances. But the music is always, when there's family gatherings, there's always music and dance in that way. Those are the traditions and stuff that are healthy. Whenever we have family reunions and stuff like that, there's who's doing what. I don't know about y'all, but in our culture as well, when someone passes in the family, there's a huge gathering of some sort with funerals. And if you're not able to make it, you may be pressured to drop some Benjamins, some Venmos, some PayPals.
Right.
Mm.
Yep.
Mhm.
So I sometimes have an issue with that with my parents. I'll ask them, how do you know them?
Mm.
I mean, are they our family? And
Right.
oh, you don't remember so and so? They were when you were a little kid. That's
were at
them.
your
That's
party.
Auntie so and so. That's Auntie
When you were
so.
5. Yeah. I
Uncle.
haven't seen them
Oh,
since then,
okay.
so.
And it comes down to, if it makes my parents happy to give a little bit of what we have, then that's fine. Because when we all pass, hopefully there's somebody that's taking care of us on our way, sending money and all that. So that's the biggest one, because there's always people that leave us in this world. So that's the big thing. My parents like, can you, anything you have,
Mhm.
can you just help us out? And
Mhm.
it makes them happy.
Mhm.
But I would say that it's pretty much faith-based and family-based in that sense of keeping those traditions. But there's just no argument about the food part.
Oh, no.
That non-negotiable is, what do we,
Mm-mm.
We understand
We,
that.
we can relate
Yeah.
until new. Yeah.
and I'm spoiled because they'll ask me what I want.
Uh-huh.
And my brother gets upset about that because I get asked first. Since
But
I'm
you're
the
the
oldest.
But you're
older.
the
Hello. You're the
oldest.
oldest. I'm the oldest.
I'm
the
the
oldest.
youngest, so.
I hear you, feel
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your experience with us. Like that, it's such a beautiful journey. And to learn more about your culture too. It's like,
Well, thank you.
The similarities
Thank
are
you
there.
both. I mean, your first gen podcast title, I believe, invokes a nice way of looking back and seeing where we came from. And so I enjoyed reminiscing. I really did. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Woohoo!
you. Thank you for the reflection.
All right.
Until next time.
Are we waving? How does this work?